Hi, this is John Harcher, and welcome to episode 6 of Left Turn at Albuquerque. It's on to disc 2 of Platinum Collection Volume 2. We've got the origins of Bugs Bunny. We've got the Hunting Trilogy. We've got Tortoise vs. Hare, Beaky Buzzard, Nasty Canasta, a bunch of one-shots, and a fan choice, among others. But we're going to go about this a little differently this time.
I knew I should have made a left turn at Albuquerque. I knew I should have taken that left turn at Albuquerque. I knew I should have taken that left turn at Albuquerque. I should have turned left at Albuquerque.
Now, when this set first came out, I noted to my friends that this disc was problematic in its presentation. You have a fan choice starting off the disc, then a famous set of 3 tunes from the 50s, then a set of tunes with a secondary character, then another set of 3 cartoons, but this time from the 40s. Then it's all the cartoons for another character, and then the ones for a proto-Bugs, without the final product since it's on disc 1. I mean, let's face it, it's a mess. So here's how we're going to do this episode, sort of chronologically. I'm going to start off with the tune showing the development of Bugs Bunny and ending with a Wild Hare from disc 1. Then we'll do the fan favorite since it's from early on. Then I'll do the Cecil Turtle Trio, followed by the Hunting Trilogy, then the Beaky Buzzards, the Nasty Canastas, and end with the 2 with the Flea and everything else. It's a lot more work, but it gives it some kind of shape. Doing it sort of by when they came out shows you both the progression and the overlap. By the way, all the behind the tune features on this disc are from previous collections. To go along with the appearance of a Wild Hare on disc 1, this section collects all of the formative appearances of the wise-cracking rabbit before he actually became Bugs. There's a quick cameo by a rabbit in Patient Porky, which is not included here. We'll talk about that in a minute. 3 out of 4 of these haven't appeared on any collections before, so to save time, the restoration on these is top notch. It's clear by the time they got to two-toning him, they wanted to do something with him. It just took a bunch of tunes to get it right. Jerry Beck does the commentary tracks for the 1st and 4th ones, and Greg Ford takes the one for a Wild Hare. So first, it's Porky's Hare Hunt from 1938 as a follow-up to Porky's Duck Hunt, which gave birth to Daffy Duck. The powers that be came up with the idea of this and gave it to Ben Hardaway with Howard Baldwin as writer. And so another star was born, just not immediately. The rabbit is plain white and pretty much a carbon copy of Daffy. He didn't really get an official name, but became known as Happy Rabbit. He also has a somewhat familiar laugh that we'd come to know better from another source. More on this later. As far as on TV, I don't think this was on too much until, like, Nickelodeon. Boy, does that laugh sound familiar. Next is Prest-O Change-O from 1939. Chuck Jones gets his first crack at Bugs, sort of. In his Disney period, along with the Sniffles cartoons, he came up with 2 curious dogs who wander into different environments and get into all kinds of trouble. In this case, written by Rich Hogan, it's at the home of a magician and they get harassed by his rabbit. I remember this mainly from the TBS days. Now, as I mentioned, Happy Rabbit made one more appearance in Patient Porky.
Correction!
Then it was off to retirement. Now, also from 1939 is Haram Scarum. Ben Hardaway returns, co-directing with Cal Dalton, with script by Melvin Miller. A guy and his dog go rabbit hunting to get around meat rationing, but end up dealing with a crazy bunny. Now, the most important part of the restoration on this one is not how it looks, but it restores the 30-second section at the end. If you know the cartoon, it was in syndication since I was small. It ends with the hunter saying,
I can whip you and your whole family!
Suddenly the whole family shows up, fists up, and then it fades out. The actual ending has the family laying the smackdown on the hunter, leaving him dazed. Proto-Bugs comes back, breaks the hunter's gun before bouncing away on his head, followed by the hunter doing the same thing. Eventually, once the rabbit evolved to who he'd become, they rechristened him with a new name and selected Ben Hardaway's nickname for him. But not just yet. Next is Elmer's Candid Camera from 1940. This is actually the only one so far that appeared on a previous collection, Volume 1. Chuck Jones takes another crack at the rabbit with Rich Hogan and Ted Pierce on script. The Proto-Bugs, Bugs photographer Elmer, still morphing away from Egghead. Now, Chuck was beginning to move out of his Disney phase around this time. It's also apparent that the boys at Termite Terrace wanted a rabbit as a main character to take this many stabs at it. I mean, this was their fourth, before getting to Bugs himself. The rabbit here is a little more refined from the one in Haram Scarum, but is still using the goofy laugh. Next time out, Mel changed Bugs' voice to the one we know today. But not wanting to let a voice go to waste, he reused the goofy laugh over at Universal for an Andy Panda cartoon where a woodpecker showed up to bug Andy and his dad. After a few tunes, Mel signed his Warner's exclusivity deal, so the woodpecker's vocal duties went to Hit's creator, Ben Hardaway. What a circle this is. Now, even funnier, it's odd to see the title of the TV show, Candid Camera, sitting right there on the movie screen in 1940, years before it ever existed. This was in syndication a lot, another one since I was a kid. Finally, from 1940 as well, we get A Wild Hare by Tex Avery and written by Rich Hogan, the first Bugs Bunny cartoon where the immortal words,
What's up, Doc?
were first uttered, as well as this bon mot by Elmer.
Shh. Be very, very quiet. I'm hunting wabbits.
When it came time to give the character a name, Tex Avery wanted to call him Jack E. Rabbit, Jack Rabbit. But Leon Schlesinger actually liked the name that was written on the model sheet. Ben Hardaway had drawn the revised version of the character, and they noted that this was Ben's drawing by putting his nickname in front of it, calling it Bugs' Bunny. So Leon Schlesinger saw Bugs Bunny, and that's how he got his name. Now, believe it or not, it took this long to get the first Bugs Bunny cartoon onto an official Looney Tunes set, having first been on the Academy Award set, then the Essential Bugs Bunny. It was so notable an omission, it made the IMDb trivia section for the cartoon. Now, also, the original list of actresses that Elmer rattles off contained Carole Lombard.
Guess who? Eddie Wilmore? Nope. Well, Carole Lombard?
When this was reissued a few years later, she had unfortunately died in the plane crash in 1942, so they changed it to Barbara Stanwyck for the blue ribbon.
Guess who? Eddie Wilmore? Nope. Barbara Stanwyck.
Now, speaking of that, the original title card had been found and used for the recent digital releases. It always had the blue ribbon title card when I saw it on TV, which wasn't all that often, to be honest. Now, oddly enough, it's the blue ribbon reissue audio that's hard to get a hold of. Yet for some reason, on their New Year's Day first marathon of Looney Tunes, Boomerang had this version instead of the correct one. Why? It's the same company. Oy. The DVD version back on the Academy Awards set was a vast improvement over what had been showing up on TV for years. They cleaned it up and it looked unbelievable, like it was made yesterday. And the Blu-ray is an improvement upon that, like they just got finished with it. As mentioned, it has the Greg Ford commentary track, which again shows they probably intended to put it on a Golden Collection eventually. They just didn't do it before this series ended. Now, it's an open question if Elmer's Pet Rabbit fits into this mix anywhere. We'll discuss this in episode 7. So next, we'll talk about Wabbit Twouble from 1941, which was also on Golden Collection Volume 1, This toon was voted online to be included as a fan favorite. It's inspired Clampett Madness, with story by Dave Monahan. It has Fat Elmer. They decided to make him look a little bit more like Arthur Q. Bryant. He goes camping at Yellowstone National Park, and bugs taunting the daylights out of him. Now, the 3D-esque pan on the opening shot looks great. Like they upped the game the Fleischers were playing back in the 30s. I always loved the way the canyon and the forest looked in this one. Some great plate and multi-plane camera work going on with this one. Then you do the close-up on Elmer. Wow. I mean, wow, did they leave a lot of grain on this? No, I mean a lot of grain. Maybe this was one of those cases where it couldn't be helped, where the technology of the time couldn't be enhanced. It's definitely not unwatchable, but it doesn't really look any different than a really good syndicated copy from back in the 70s where it was played a lot. But it did give us a modern meme, Big Chungus Bugs. Michael Barrier does the commentary with clips of Bob Clampett tossed in. Next up, we'll talk about the Hare and Tortoise trio from the 40s. First is Tortoise Beats Hare from 1941 in Golden Collection Volume 2. The first Bugs and Cecil Race starts out with a great bit. Bugs walks in front of the title card and proceeds to mispronounce the people working on the short in a marvelous bit of breaking the fourth wall.
Story, Dave Monahan. Supervision, Fred Avery.
Now, this is the one where Cecil gets his buddies to join up with him in a little game of psychological warfare, very similar to the one Tex did later with Droopy. It was also part of Bugs' evolution, since Bugs is the victim here rather than the perpetrator. As for the restoration, wow. As opposed to Wabbit Trouble from around the same time, this is one of those that jumps off the screen at you. Even though you can see the brushstrokes in the background, very nice work. Next is Tortoise Wins by a Hare from 1943 in Golden Collection Volume 1. Why did they put this one on the first volume? The second Bugs Cecil Race has Bob Clampett and Warren Foster on creative team. They have the rabbit and turtle switch places, but the numbers racket has their own plans.
Title Schmeidel, I'm the rabbit!
You're the title!
Rabbit!
Title!
Rabbit!
It's the usual chaos by Bob with a suicide ending that the sensitivity police had to edit out in recent years. The restoration is a little toned down on this one, but clean, except one badly scratched cell. It's in there somewhere, it goes by quick. Finally, we have Rabbit Transit from 1947. It's back to Volume 2, the third of the Bugs Cecil Races, this time by Freeling, Maltese, and Pierce. Now, this one's a cross-country affair that Bugs actually wins, but still loses in the end. This one was shown the most when I was a kid. The animation of the steam at the beginning looks almost 3D. Overall, just sharp work. Now, this is actually the only one of the three without a commentary track. Next up, we have the complete Bugs, Daffy, Elmer Hunting Trilogy from Chuck Jones and Michael Maltese. All of them have commentary tracks. First up is Rabbit Fire, Part 1 of the trilogy from 1951. But why was this on Disc 2 of Golden Collection Volume 1? Chuck and Mike have our characters bicker over whether it's rabbit or duck season. This exchange has gone on to become one of the iconic moments in cartoon history.
Duck season! Wabbit season! Duck season! Wabbit season!
But there's a lot more to it. You have the Joe Besser elephant. You have Bugs in drag. Then there's the great sequence where Bugs pretends to be Daffy and Daffy pretends to be Bugs, and Mel has to do their voices as the one impersonating the other. I mean, it's tougher than it sounds.
Yeah. What's up, Doc? Having any luck with those ducks? It's duck season, you know.
Just a darn minute. Where do you get that duck season stuff?
This one was cleaned up okay. Next is Rabbit Seasoning from 1952, Part 2 of the trilogy. Also from Golden Collection Volume 1, yet on Disc 1. Go figure. This is the one where they banter back and forth over whether to shoot him now or wait till you get home. No matter what, Daffy always gets the worst of it.
Would you like to shoot me now or wait till you get home? Shoot him now! Shoot him now! You keep out of this. He doesn't have to shoot you now.
Now, like Rabbit Fire, this was in heavy rotation from the time I was small. Again, it cleaned up okay, but due to the backgrounds, it remains a little on the grainy side. Finally, we have Duck Rabbit Duck from 1953, part 3 of the trilogy, ironically enough from Golden Collection Volume 3, with Elmer just trying to figure out what season it is, and Bugs turning Daffy into anything in season just by saying it and raising a sign. I don't remember seeing this one very often. It wasn't in the Channel 5 rotation or in the CBS Bugs Bunny Roadrunner show mix, at least from what I remember. It was only when the Saturday morning show moved back over to ABC in the mid-'80s that I remember it beginning to show up in any regularity. Interestingly, to throw back to the experimental period, you can see where they didn't quite finish painting some of the backgrounds. On all 3 of these, the colors really don't pop out like some of the other restorations. Now, the bit in Beanstalk Bunny over Who's Jack?
He is Jack. It's a lie! It's a lie! My name is, Aloysius. His name is Jack. Jack Rabbit!
Is similar to the Rabbit Season, Duck Season bit in these. Someone also noted that each of these cartoons represents a different season. Rabbit Fire in spring, Rabbit Seasoning in fall, and Duck Rabbit Duck in winter. In this way, we can look at Alibaba Bunny as an extension of the trilogy, since it could be considered the summer short. Okay, with all of those out of the way, let's move on to the supporting characters. First up is Beaky Buzzard. Wow, he had 4 appearances? I only remember the first 2, and they're the ones with the commentary tracks. First is Bugs Bunny Gets the Boid from 1943 in Golden Collection Volume 1. Bob Clampett, with writing by Foster and Ernest Gee, unleashes his usual chaos with Bugs trying to get away from Beaky Buzzard. Borders on the surreal at times, especially that section where he's buried by the skeleton. Weird. Kent Rogers does Beaky.
No, 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 I don't wanna, no, no, oh, no, no, no.
And the great Sarah Berner does Mama.
Well, at least go out and get a little rabbit or something.
Main characters are okay, but the backgrounds look a little fuzzy. Next is the Bashful Buzzard from 1945 and Golden Collection Volume 5. It's a remake of sorts of Bugs Bunny Gets the Boid done by Clampett and Michael Sassonoff, with the Buzzard on his own without Bugs going after a variety of animals.
I'm bringing home a baby bumblebee.
Including possibly Cecil. It especially looks that way in the original storyboards. But definitely not Dumbo. Kent Rogers and Sarah Berner are back as Beaky and Mama, but unfortunately Rogers died in the service during the war in an accident. So this was one of his last tunes. It's another one that looks cleaned up but only on the level of a really good syndicated copy. Speaking of syndicated, the first one was shown a lot when I was a kid. The Bashful one, maybe it was on Channel 29, but TBS showed it a lot more. At one point, they ended up finding the original title music, but not the original title cards. So for its appearance on Golden Collection Volume 5, they put together their own version of what they thought the titles would have looked like back in 1945. It's clunky, but I'll include just a little snippet here. Now, these next 2 were completely new, both to home video, well, almost, and to me. When, like I said, when they came out, I didn't even know they existed. They're also both from 1950. First is The Lion's Busy by Friz Freleng and Ted Pierce. This one has a lion reaching the ripe old age of 10, old enough to have a buzzard just waiting for him to die. Beaky's a little sneaky in this one, sort of uncharacteristic for him, but more in line with the way Friz likes his characters. The title card looks pretty bad, but the tune is okay on its own. The other new one is Strike with Father by Robert McKimson and Warren Foster. Beaky is left on the doorstep of some sparrows who try to teach him to eat other things after he grows up. Now, the booklet included in the set says the voice of Beaky's dad was done by Ted Pierce.
There comes a time when a chap has to shoulder his own responsibilities and, by Jove, prove his mettle by overcoming his introvertic tendencies.
Now, to me, it sounds kind of a lot like Dawes Butler, but it seems it was too early for him with Warner Brothers. So I don't remember Ted Pierce doing voices this refined.
If you don't like it, you can go to the showers.
You know, Dawes Butler was able to do anything from the upstanding butler, that type, you know, all the way down to Yogi and Quick Draw McGraw. So just take another listen to the opening of Gift Wrap, which would have been like 2 years later.
'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the house, not a creature was stirring, not even a mouse.
You decide. The restoration is okay, but pretty drab on the scenes inside the pigeon home. There's a lot of marks in the background. Now, technically, this isn't its digital debut. It was a bonus on the Flame and the Arrow DVD, hence almost, but it's a Blu-ray debut. Next up is Bad Guy Nasty Canasta, even though the second time he looks completely different from the first time. And the third one, he kind of looks like the first, but is clean-shaven and more of a goof. Chuck did all three of these. Maltese wrote the first two. Pierce did the third. First is Drip Along Daffy from 1951 in Golden Collection Volume 1. Daffy the hero goes up against Nasty Canasta, but it's Porky, the comic relief, who comes through in the end. Now, for some reason, Channel 5 would chop out the first minute or so of this, I'm guessing mostly for the violence. The same channel would show westerns on Saturday and Sunday of the kind Chuck was making fun of with no cuts. Go figure. Also, it's the first tune where Daffy and Porky are teamed as partners rather than antagonists. The colors pop more in this one. There's some background debris, but not much. Now, doing some double checking on IMDb, it says that John T. Smith, the voice of a lot of big, gruff characters like the Crusher, who we talked about a couple episodes back, did Canasta's voice here. But to me, it sounds like Mel Blanc doing his own rough, tough voice.
Have a drink.
Awfully decent of you.
Two of the usual.
Yes, sir.
So this is another one. I'm like, are you guys sure on these? This is the only one of the three that has a commentary track. This one's done by Michael Barrier, and he tells us where Old Panther comes from. Don't ask. Next up is My Little Duckaroo from 1954 in Gold Collection Volume 6. This is kind of Chuck's semi-remake of Drip Along Daffy, which has the duck as the masked avenger facing off against Nasty Canasta, with Porky again as comic relief. Seems just about the same. There does happen to be a lot more cultural references here. I remember this one from Saturday morning, mostly on ABC. This one is cleaned up very nicely. Finally is Barbary Coast Bunny from 1956 in Golden Collection Volume 4. Bugs find a huge lump of gold and tries to outswindle an old San Francisco swindler, a speaking Nasty Canasta done by Dawes Butler.
Just a moment, friend. How about you and me having a friendly little game?
To get it back. He's a bit of an odd character foil for Bugs, and it's kind of more in line with the kind of folks Daffy ran into in Chuck Jones' other shorts with him. It's another nice, clean job with relatively subdued colors. This was on the network quite a bit. Anybody know why San Francisco got the term Barbary Coast attached to it when it basically refers to the place over in Libya where there were the pirates in Jefferson's day? I don't know. Next up, A Little Flea has his two outings represented next. First is An Itch in Time from 1943 and Golden Collection Volume 3 by Bob Clampett and Warren Foster. The traveling pest ends up at Elmer's house and infesting his dog, who really does not want a bath. This may not have been one of Clampett's best, but it was an afternoon staple when I was growing up. Sarah Berner does the voice of the Flea, sped up. The colors start off a little drab, but look better as the tune progresses. John Kay and former Warner's artist and later Peanuts director Bill Melendez take the commentary track for this one. The second is a Horsefly Fleas from 1947. Try saying that fast. It's a digital debut for the sequel, directed by Bob McKimson and again written by Forrester. The Flea returns and teams up with a horsefly to investigate the dog in this house. They end up running into some Flea Indians, which may be why this isn't shown much anymore. Ironically, though, this was shown more often than the first one when I was growing up. Mel takes over as the voice of the Flea this time out.
There'll be no more wandering highways, no more plodding byways. There's a home around the corner for me.
Another one where the titles don't look good, but the cartoon itself is okay, apart from some pretty bad cell debris in the dog hair. There's no commentary track here. An odd group of one-shots are next. There's really no theme here, but all of them have commentary, so you can find out all kind of fun little facts about them. First is Hollywood Steps Out from 1941 in Golden Collection Volume 2. Lots of star caricatures hang out at the club while Tex Avery, Melvin Miller, and the gang have at them. Surprisingly, even as a kid, I could tell who about 3/4 of the people were. In fact, we can go over, and IMDb has them listed out, so let's go through them all. We have Claudette Colbert, Don Amici, Adolphe Menjou, Norma Shearer, Cary Grant, Greta Garbo, Edward G. Robinson, Ann Sheridan, Henry Bender, Leon Schlesinger, Johnny Weissmuller, and a Kochek girl who may or may not be Lucille Ball, James Cagney, Humphrey Bogart, George Raft, Harpo Marx, Clark Gable, Bing Crosby, Leopold Sikowski, James Stewart, Dorothy Lamour, Tyrone Power, Sonia Henney, Mo, Larry, and Curly, Oliver Hardy, where's Stan? Cesar Romero, Rita Hayworth, Mickey Rooney, Judy Garland, Louis Stone, Sally Rand, Kate Kaiser, William Powell, Spencer Tracy, Ronald Coleman, Errol Flynn, Wallace Berry, C. Aubrey Smith, Peter Lorre, Henry Fonda, J. Edgar Hoover, Boris Karloff, Arthur Treacher, Buster Keaton, Misha Auer, Ned Sparks, Jerry Colonna, see him again, Claude Rains or Vincent Price, take your pick, and Groucho Marx. Now, the original ending actually had Gable kiss Groucho, but Clark demurred, so they cut it out. We don't have that ending. This is all we have left.
I'm a bad boy.
There were also some tables saved for some people who couldn't appear in the cartoon. It's unknown why. I believe Betty Davis insisted she not appear in it. You know her in Warner's. Dave Barry does most of the male impersonations.
Yes, Bobby.
Sarah Berner does female.
Cigars, cigarettes.
And Mel does Jerry Colonna.
Yuri!
This one wasn't heavily shown in New York, but WTAF in Philly had it as a bumper for their Looney Tunes show. And I think it was on TBS quite a bit. It looks okay, but honestly not much better than the DVD version. The Sally Rand segment has the most debris. Next is Paige Miss Glory from Golden Collection Volume 6. A bellhop gets to meet the star of his dreams. Done in 1936, director Tex Avery and writer Kyle Howard tried explicitly for a more modern animation style. Looked more like advertising to me, but it was different for Warner's. Now, for some reason, this one was on TBS all the time. I have no idea why. Looks amazingly good for a 1936 cartoon. Barely any scratches or debris on it, but a really annoying hair pops up about 3 minutes in. Then there's this weird white thing towards the lower right corner of every scene. I wish that could have been fixed. Next is Rocket Bye Baby, which is also from Volume 6. Jones and Maltese give us another baby mix-up tune, this time with an interplanetary twist with babies from Earth and Mars being switched. It's interesting in the Dawes Butler does the voice work instead of Mel Blanc.
Somebody goofed.
There's no voice talent credited since Mel still had his exclusivity deal. Butler started doing a lot of Warner's work in the mid-50s. Now, I would have paired this one up with Goo Goo Goliath, another tune about a stork mistakenly dropping the wrong baby off someplace, or found another one-shot until they could both appear together. The restoration isn't flashy, but it's nicely cleaned up. Next up is one more from Golden Collection Volume 6, Russian Rhapsody from 1944 by Bob Clampett and Lou Lilly. Hitler goes to bomb Moscow in person. Perfect timing, someone else is personally coming to see him paper hanging. But the gremlins from the Kremlin are there to sabotage his mission. Wow, if you thought Mario Cantone as a children's host was tough, we had him in the New York market in Steam Pipe Alley.
Oh, that's a
Try contemplating this one. Enemy of my enemy is my friend, I guess. Once you get beyond seeing what you're seeing, it's the usual clamp in insanity. The gremlins are all characters of the denizens of Termite Terrace. Looks okay until when they get to where Hitler's flying the plane, then there's cell debris galore, and there's a hare towards the end. Finally, we have Ray Meow from 1948 in Golden Collection Volume 4, directed by Art Davis and written by Lloyd Turner. Doesn't look like Bill Scott worked on this one. A stupid cat is left a fortune by his master, and the next one in the will, a parakeet, plots to get rid of him. But somehow the well-thought-out plans never seem to work out. Now, this got some airplay when I was younger. I remember
Breathe, stupid, breathe! You forgot to breathe again!
There's lots of fun gags. It's pretty sharp. The characters in the forefront really separate from the backing. Interesting bit of history here. Take a look at the name of the cat. Now, oddly enough, who ended up voicing Heathcliff on the cartoon show in the 80s? Right, Mel Blanc.
Ah, filet of soul a la alley trash can.
Now, the Behind the Toons documentaries include one with Tex Avery and ones for the Hollywood-centric and war tunes, plus one for the Hunting Trilogy. A quick note here. I know I said I was going to try to do the bonus disc here with this episode. Since we weren't going to go into that much detail, a lot of the cartoons are covered elsewhere. So then I started working on it and putting the pieces together. And I saw how much I had to look into and how much I had to talk about. You're getting another episode out of this next month, Just sometimes the way these things work out. Also, an update on the Boomerang rotation. I like to keep track of it since it's one of 3 main places you can see Looney Tunes these days on a regular basis. Boomerang, MeTV between Tune In With Me and Saturday mornings, and Max, whatever they have left on. Plus, like I said, only up to 1949. So now, as of January this month, January 2024, I mentioned they're doing basically an alphabetical rotation. They're just starting with, actually they're starting with a number cartoon and then working through A, B, C, and D. They're going through. They have added the December 31st last episodes and the January 1st first episodes. Plus, they added the 3 cartoons that were included in the Bugs Bunny Looney Christmas Tales special that they aired around Christmas. Plus, remember how I said that they specifically didn't add gift wrapped around Christmas? Turns out they added it to the rotation, but they didn't air it around Christmas. I don't know, maybe they left it out. Maybe they forgot. I don't know. I'm probably going to do a rundown of all the cartoons next episode, since that's probably still going to be a little short, even though I'm doing a separate episode on it. I'll just do a spoken one and just do like I read it. Sorry, it'll be a little boring, but there's about 150 cartoons now, and I'm not going to do 150 title cards. I don't have time for that. And it was just a little long. It took me a little while to do the 25 for the update episode a couple weeks ago. But it'll give us a picture of what's going on there, and then maybe I'll be able to keep track of if they drop something or if they add it in. So that'll be next time. Also, just a note on our viewership. Speaking of the update episode, already got 1,000 views. This is pretty good. I was thrilled when I got 500 the first month of the first episode, and now it's like coming on a regular basis. Now I'm like, what is it taking a week to get to 1,000 views? So thank you out there for that. Episode 1 has cracked 1,000 views. Episode 2 has cracked 1,000 views. Episode 3 has cracked 500. 3.5 is still going like gangbusters. It's like over 6,500. I believe episode 4 is over 6,000. Episode 5 is over 4,000. So we're doing pretty good out there. So thank you so much for that. Okay, one more point of privilege for those of you who listen to my Keep On Grooving podcast about Jimi Hendrix. You've heard me mention my friend Ray. He's the one who kind of got me into rock and roll. It's his birthday this weekend, so happy birthday to him. I thought about it. We really don't have a cartoon story together. Like my buddy David and I, we have a lot, and you'll hear more about it as we go through the series. But the only one that I could think of for Ray and I is we took a trip out to Pittsburgh at one point to visit our friends out there. They live in Canonsburg, just south of Pittsburgh. I will talk more about that town because I do have a story with another friend from Canonsburg that we'll talk about. So anyway, we had this tape. Remember cassette tapes? We had this tape of like TV theme songs, and Magilla Gorilla came on. So we're like, sing along with Magilla Gorilla. And Sean, God rest his soul, was like, "What's this?" I'm like, Magilla Gorilla. Well, I never heard of it. You never heard of Magilla Gorilla? I never checked with Tony to see if he had heard of Magilla Gorilla, because he lived in the same town, but he moved around a little bit. So that brought up the whole idea of different markets and what cartoons were in which market and who played what where. So maybe along with the Boomerang stuff that I'll talk about, I'll add in my own personal rundown, which I've kind of mentioned briefly. So it'll give you a little bit of context about that. And it's also interesting because Ray's birthday is on the same day as the marketing maven, the Reverend Dr. Malachi Williams. So happy birthday to her. She actually helped me out when my son was small. He loved Thomas the Tank Engine like so many kids did. And my wife wanted a certain set of tunes for him. And I'm like, I don't think they have those. Well, yeah, I want the ones where the tank engines are talking. I'm like, well, no, they just kind of voice over, but mouths don't move. And Malachi told me that, oh, yeah, they started showing those. I'm like, I had no idea. So she helped us there. So, once again, she's a whiz with everything. Thanks, Mal. Next time it's Volume 2's bonus disc, which includes Tex Avery's and Frizz Freeling's work at MGM, some military-related shorts, and a bunch of odds and ends. I'm John Harchar. Thanks for watching.